The man worried as he sat in his car. He knew he had to hurry. Tonight, it was important to keep everything on track. But would the woman come along this road at her usual hour? It was 11 o'clock at night, and he was cutting it close. He remembered the voice he had heard, reverberating in his head, before he'd come here. Grandpa's voice.
"You better be right about her schedule, Scratch."
Scratch. The man in the car didn't like that name. It wasn't his real name. It was a folk-tale name for the devil. As far as Grandpa was concerned, he was a bad seed. Grandpa had called him Scratch for longer than he could remember. Although everybody else called him by his real name, Scratch had stuck in his own mind. He hated his grandpa, but he couldn't pull him out of his head. Scratch reached up and slapped his own skull several times, trying to get the voice out. It hurt, and for a moment he had a sense of calm. But then came Grandpa's dull laughter, echoing somewhere in there. It was a little fainter now, at least. He looked anxiously at his watch. A few minutes past 11. Would she be late tonight? Would she go somewhere else? No, that wasn't her style. He'd scouted her movements for days. She was always punctual, always stuck to the same routine. If only she understood how much was at stake. Grandpa would punish him if he botched this. But there was much more to it than that. The world itself was running out of time. He had a huge responsibility, and it weighed on him heavily. Car lights appeared, far back along the road, and he sighed with relief. That must be her. This country road only led to a few houses. It was usually deserted at this hour, except for the woman who always drove from her job straight to the house where she rented a room. Scratch had turned his car around to face hers and stopped it right in the middle of this little gravel road. He stood outside, hands trembling, using a flashlight to peer under his hood, hoping it would work. His heart slammed as the other vehicle drove by. "Stop," he pleaded silently. "Please stop." Soon the other vehicle pulled to a stop a short distance from him. He bit back a smile. Scratch turned and looked toward the lights. Yes, it was her shabby little car, just as he had hoped. Now he just had to lure her to him. She lowered her window and he looked over at her and smiled his most pleasant smile. "I guess I'm stranded," he called out. He turned the flashlight briefly on the driver's face. Yes, it was definitely her. Scratch noticed that she had a charming, open face. More importantly, she was very thin, which suited his purposes. It seemed a shame, what he was going to have to do to her. But it was like Grandpa always said.
"It's for the greater good."
It was true, and Scratch knew it. If the woman could only understand, perhaps she'd even be willing to sacrifice herself. After all, sacrifice was one of the finest features of human nature. She ought to be glad to be of service. But he knew that was too much to expect. Things would get violent and messy, just like they always did. "What's the problem?" the woman called. He noticed something appealing in how she spoke. He didn't yet know what it was. "I don't know," he said. "She just died on me." The woman craned her head out of the window. He looked straight at her. Her freckled face, framed by bright red curly hair, was open and smiling. She didn't seem to be the least bit dismayed by the inconvenience he caused her. But would she be trusting enough to get out of the car? Probably, if the other women had been any indication. Grandpa was always telling him how horribly ugly he was, and he couldn't help thinking of himself that way. But he knew that other people, women especially, found him rather pleasant to look at. He gestured toward the open hood. "I don't know anything about cars," he yelled back to her. "I don't either," the woman called back. "Well, maybe the two of us together can figure out what's wrong," he said. "Do you mind giving it a try?" None at all. Just don't expect me to be much help. She opened her door, got out and walked toward him. Yes, everything was going perfectly. He had lured her out of her car.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.